Hi, I'm Chaplain Larry Crabtree with the Maryland State Police and the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office.
And I'm Chaplain Charlie Wharton with the St. Mary's County Sheriff's Office.
Charlie, again, we're kind of in the middle of our series on police, law enforcement officers dealing with the different stressors that are unique to their occupation. And we want to talk today about an attitude or a mindset that seems to be pretty prevalent in our culture today. And share with me a little bit about where we're going and this really important, timely issue right now.
You know, I've been doing this for 25 years, and this is really the first time I've ever talked about the idea of an anti-police society. There's something that's brewing in today's environment that is kind of focused on law enforcement as a profession. Through the years, we've had to talk about individual officers that made decisions, and especially some individual officers that did not make good decisions, and some of the impact that had. But one of the things I think we're seeing, or at least we're hearing, and I want to come back to how prevalent is it really, but one of the things that we're hearing is how people don't trust law enforcement as a profession. Is that really true or not? It's a good part of our discussion for today.
And when you hear things like defund the police and these big rallies, that's incredibly stressful for a police officer. I mean, ultimately, what we're talking about are feelings among law enforcement officers that they're not important, that they've been rejected, that they're they're the criminal, they're the problem, and we need a solution to them, and that hurts.
It really does. And I think that the biggest part about that is it's being played out on a national stage. You know, if you have somebody that doesn't like, the guy that fills your Coke machine or something like that, okay, they don't like the guy that fills the Coke machine. The problem is that right now it's my profession that's being splattered up all over the media. And also, these are my friends. These are my colleagues that are being persecuted out there. So
let's talk a little bit about, is this a real issue? I mean, we know what media says. We know there's a certain, ticker script that goes out that we're hearing all the time. Do you think it's real? Do you think that's actually representative of society?
I really don't. I think that still, for the most part, that society trusts police, that society appreciates the job that is being done, and that society realizes the value that our profession has in the community. Unfortunately, that's not what makes good sound bites. It makes good feel-good stories, and it may be tucked somewhere under, used to be, back when there were newspapers, it was on page 78. But I think in today's society, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and that's what you're seeing more and more of today.
So how does a police officer go about then dealing with this? Because those feelings are real. When you watch the news, you read an article, and it's bashing what you do and what you represent, you're going to obviously have some kind of negative reaction to that, and it's going to continue to build stress. So what do? How do you address that?
I think the first thing that we do is each and every day we have to go out and be people of integrity, be the people that took that oath to protect and serve not only the Constitution but also the people that live in our community. That's really the only thing that I can control. Is what am I doing on my 8-hour shift or my 12-hour shift? That's the number one thing. Am I living with integrity? I think a second thing to do is to make sure that I am holding my profession accountable. If you want to see something go viral in a negative way, is to try to hide something that is not right. Yeah. And we've got to overcome this concept that there's a thin blue line that separates law enforcement from the rest of the world.
What do you think? That's a good question. I mean, what do you think we mean typically by thin blue line?
I think when that got started years ago, it's us against them. It's law enforcement against the rest of the world. And nobody understands us, and so we have to protect our own. And if there is maybe a negative legacy that's been handed down, that may be something that has been handed down. However, is that just what is perceived in the movies and on TV, or is that real? And I think what we're seeing today with people who are standing up and making good decisions about, our profession, what this person did in our profession was wrong. I think that thin blue line is going away. And it really, honestly, I'm not sure that I've ever said this, but probably now is the time for it to go away.
I always thought that thin blue line represented, the danger aspect of things, that you're in that unique position, you're walking that thin blue line in that sense. Never really thought of it in the perspective you're sharing right now.
And if that is the way that it was intended, I don't mind that. Yeah. But when it's that us against them mentality, I think that's where we're going to get in trouble. And that's where you're going to see these calls for defund the police, or these the people that are going to stand up and say what is being done is wrong.
Yeah. So Charlie, again, this is, I think, a good discussion. These are things that I don't think many people are talking about right now. So let me ask you this. Do you think there are, though, real issues that do have to be addressed? Are there real problems involving police and civilians that really have to be put on the table and we need answers to?
I believe so. I think there are some things that are out there that we have a responsibility to have a conversation about. Some of those have to do with issues and perspectives of how we do the job. But also, we need to be having conversations about how do we get good people in to law enforcement. That should be one of the first conversations and the loudest conversations that we're having, because we can't go out and create robots. One of my favorite police officers of all time, Sergeant Joe Friday, when he was trying to defend this issue back in the 1960s, what he said was, we've got one major problem in law enforcement, and that is we have to hire from the human race. And so if people are wanting to help solve the law enforcement challenge, let's find good people who are going to do a good job for long term.
Yeah. So it sounds like what we're saying is the best way to deal with this particular stress of the cultural perception is that we rise above it.
We have to rise above it. We have to be above reproach. We have to be people of integrity.
And I think I sympathize. That's what ministers should be. And there's bad ministers too.
Yes, there are.
So these are, this truth we're talking about really goes across the board, but police officers tend to be in the spotlight. And the way to counteract this is to, first of all, know who you really are in the job you're doing. And if you're doing a great job, then, hey, you're doing a great job. You're doing your best. And then you do everything you can to set that bar high for all the other police officers to follow, and you be that source of integrity.
And I think a thermometer for this is when you stop someone or when you talk to someone, how do they respond back to you? A vast majority of the people that I stopped or that I talked to, by the end of our interaction, they shook my hand or they said thank you. And you write somebody a $100 ticket and they say thank you, that really says something about the reputation that people still have in law enforcement.
Yeah, I don't think I'd say thank you, but hey.
Yeah. My response was always, have a better day.
Yeah, right. I wouldn't be mean, but yeah. Well, Charlie, honestly, this is really practical, good information. So we're going to end it for this week. We look forward to picking our discussion up next week. But until then, be strong.
And be safe.